How's it going, everyone? Triumphant Light is out, so we got to do a tier list on all of the new cards. If you're new to the channel, a little bit about myself. I'm Tilly. I am a longtime Pokemon TCG player, so if you want to see more content from someone who has insight into the actual trading card game and can draw some parallels, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, let's talk about what these tiers mean, because as you can see, I've done away with the usual, like, S through D tier, S through F, whatever, because I like to give explanations on why I have certain cards in the tiers that they're in, because A tier means something different to everyone, right? So at the bottom here, we have They Tried. This They Tried tier is going to be, you know how you see a lot of filler cards in sets? Like, you'll see a stage 1 that does 50 damage for 2 energy, and it's pretty standard, but it's never going to do anything. These are the cards that go outside of that norm, but still are not great. For the fun only, it's going to be pretty similar to the They Tried, but I think could actually have some use case in some just fun off-meta decks that you might play. Might Impact, these are going to be the cards that I'm not totally sold on yet, but I can see the power is there. It's just going to come down to whether or not people figure out lists that will, put these cards to good use and might impact the meta in the future. Will Impact is just going to be, these are powerful enough that I see these cards going into meta decks day one. We're already seeing them do well after some of these tournaments. And then Broken is going to be the S tier, like meta-defining, hands down. These are creating entirely new archetypes around themselves. And I'm sure you can already guess some of the Broken cards that we're going to put in there. So let's get into the list. Again, please subscribe to the channel if you want to. I really appreciate it. So let's start first. We're just going to go in order here. We'll talk about the grass types. We have Heracross. Heracross is going into the They Tried category. Heracross says single horn throw. It's for 3 energy. It does 50 damage, but you flip 2 coins, and if both are heads, I believe it does 70 more damage. It doesn't really matter. It's not good. You can use it in combination with this Berry supporter, but Berry will reduce your Heracross, Snorlax, and Staraptor's attack cost by 2 colorless. Even still, it's not great. You're using your supporter for turn to do 50 damage with a grass type. Maybe 120 if you're lucky. 25% of the chance, 25% of the time you'll do 120. It's just not great. Berry is a pretty underwhelming supporter, and the cards around it are pretty underwhelming as well for the most part. Then we have Vespiquen, 3 colorless or 3 grass energy. It does 120 damage. This is also going to go into They Tried. It's just a stage 1. Stage 1 that takes 3 energy is really tough to call decent. It is a 1-prizer, which is cool. You might think you could pair it with Leafeon, but overall, I don't think it's going to be that great. There are other grass types that you could pair Leafeon with that are a lot better. So I don't think Vespiquen is really going to do much of anything. And also, just to let you guys know, if you don't see the card on here, again, it's going to be in that, like, just filler, not good, we don't need to discuss it category, and there are going to be a lot that we skip over. Now we have Carnivine. Carnivine I'm going to put in the Might Impact. This is a pretty decent card. We'll just have to see if Grass-type Arceus variants ever end up doing anything. Carnivine says for 1 energy, it does 20 damage, but it has the Power Link ability, so if you have an Arceus in play, it will do 30 more. So you could be doing 50 damage for 1 energy on a Grass-type Pokemon, which, again, is a decent type to have. You hit Darkrai for weakness. You hit some of the fighting stuff has Grass-type weaknesses as well. That might be relevant. Overall, just a decent enough card. I don't think it's bad. I just think it depends on, will we figure out Grass-type Arceus? Will Grass-type Arceus ever really be anything? And that's where we'll leave that card. Now, to wrap up the Grass-type stuff, we'll go into Leafeon EX. Leafeon is 100% going into the Broken, okay? This card is disgusting. It allows you to accelerate an energy, a grass energy, to one of your grass Pokemon while it's in the active spot. This can power up to Leafeon and get it attacking, a turn sooner than you normally would. It can power up a Celebi on the bench. It can power up a Yanmega on the bench. It can do a lot. And it's very funny. This Leafeon has the ability that I actually thought Celebi would have. When we first heard about Celebi and we heard that it was going to be a card, I thought Celebi might have the Force Breath ability because it seemed like what grass types needed was some energy acceleration. Instead, we got Celebi, which flips coins and superior is the energy boost that we got alongside it. So very, very funny to see that now Leafeon and Celebi is like the deck to play, but just we had to wait a little bit for Celebi to get the ability that I thought it was going to have. Yeah, just a super broken card, right? It's already doing extremely well in the meta. It's going to keep doing well unless it gets power crept out, which we'll talk about power creep while we're doing this as well. But if it doesn't, then I can see this staying a good card. It's only going to get better as better grass types are printed. Hopefully basics. I don't think you can really pair Leafeon with something like Venusaur because stage 1 and a stage 2 in a deck that wants to also be playing a lot of healing cards, just there's not enough space for it. So I think Leafeon with Celebi is really just the way to go, and it's disgusting. It's overall just disgusting. Now we'll talk about the fire stuff. We'll do Houndoom. Houndoom is like a mix between fun only and they tried. It's another corner attacker. Corner attacks are just not great. I don't know that they ever really were great, and they continue to be not great. So I won't talk about Houndoom more. It has the corner attack like we've seen on a bunch of other cards. It's a stage 1. It's the same thing, just with a different energy type. So nothing really special about him. Now we have Heatran. Heatran's going into the Will Impact. This is a great, great card. We've been seeing this as a package with Arceus and Crobat. You use the Heatran as the guy who kind of sits in the active spot, can be a secondary attacker. It's just very powerful because it has 3 retreat cost, but its ability says that if you have an Arceus in play, it has no retreat cost. So now you have this 110 HP Heatran, which can sit in the active spot and attacks for only 2 fighter energy. That attack can be doing 80 damage if it has any damage counters on it. Just overall a great card. So you're seeing it paired with Arceus. You're also seeing it paired with Infernape, because this is really, in my opinion, what Infernape was missing. I don't know how much you guys played the, what is it? The Moltres version of Infernape. My problem with the Moltres version of Infernape was always that Moltres gave up 2 prizes, and it allowed your opponent a very easy route to victory. They could early game knock out a Chimchar or a Monferno, and then in the late game, after they've already damaged that Moltres and you've run away to the bench and now you're attacking with Infernape, well, they just go Cyrus on the Moltres and that's the game. Moltres does not feel as good as it used to. 140 HP on a basic EX is not the giant wall that it used to be. It really becomes a big liability. So I think having a basic, 1 prize fire type is a much, much better improvement over Infernape. And again, it's also just doing very well with the Arceus build. So, good card, good card. I'm happy to see it in the metagame. Now for water stuff. We do not have a lot to talk about in the water category. A lot of filler here. I guess first we'll go into the Abomasnow. This is also going to be a Might Impact. So this is, again, it's another Arceus card. It has the Vigor Linked ability, though, which says if you have an Arceus in play, your attacks cost 1 colorless energy less. So, Abomasnow, 120 HP, pretty respectable. It can do 80 damage with its Mega Punch for just 2 water energy. That can get up and going pretty quick. And again, 120 HP to potentially, like if you go second and you attach to a Snover turn 1, and then turn 2, you get an Arceus in play and the Abomasnow, you're now doing 80 over and over on your second turn. That's pretty decent. It's really just going to be, do we find a way that Arceus water is viable? Do we think that this is something that we should be playing? So I'm going to put it in the Might Impact, because there is potential here for some water Arceus variants to do well. Arceus is just such a strong core as is that I could see this card doing decent in the future. Glaceon EX. I don't want to be wrong about this, but I do feel like this guy stinks. I really do. The best use case I could see for it would be, and even this isn't great because it goes against everything water tries to do at the moment, it would be maybe you're playing it in Palkia and you already have the Vaporeon line, so you sneak in a Glaceon, and maybe Glaceon can sit in the active spot and fix some damage. The problem is that water always wants something else in the active. You either want your Manaphy in the active spot, or you want your Palkia or Articuno in the active spot attacking. There's never really a time where you want like just a Pokemon sitting in the active and passing the turn for 1 damage counter. Well, 2 damage counter between the turns. but it's just not great. Its attack isn't anything special. It takes 2 water energy and a colorless to do 90. I feel like maybe there could have been something here with Leafeon if this card required 1 water and 2 colorless, because then you could go attach to Glaceon, accelerate with Leafeon, and then accelerate with Leafeon again and put your attachment somewhere else. But the 2 water means you have to attach manually to it twice. I don't know. And also, you would only really get to play the 2. You'd have a Leafeon and a Glaceon, and that's not going to carry you through the game. I think they just fumbled with this ability. I think what it comes down to is they fumbled with this ability. This ability should have been anything different. It should have been it pings damage from the bench. Like, if it's on the bench, it'll do 10 damage to the active. It should have been this will put 1 damage onto every EX Pokemon in play on your opponent's side. Something else. It should have been something else, but it's not, and I just don't think it's a great card. You can't build a deck around Glaceon on its own because it has such low HP, and it's only doing 90, and I just can't, I can't show it any respect because I don't think it's great. Now we'll move on to the electric. That's it for the water types. I can't think of another water type that is even worth talking about. This Origin form Palkia is also bad. It's maybe a cool wall, but at this point, like, if you're playing a wall, you're playing Druddigan. So we don't really need any more walls. Unless there are more walls that have the rough skin ability, there's no reason to play any of them that aren't Druddigan. Now we have the Raichu, and I need a little refresher on this. Okay, this Raichu is also bad. This Raichu is also bad. He goes into they tried territory. He has the Resilience Link ability, another new Arceus ability we haven't talked about yet. Resilience Link, if you have an Arceus, it takes 30 less damage from attacks, so it has an effective 120 HP. Then its attack Spark for 2 lightning, it does 40 damage only, and then snipes 20 somewhere. Just not a good use of your energy or your time. It's just not a fantastic card at all. And that is it for the lightning stuff. So lightning got nothing really great either. Now we have the psychic types. We will do unknown. I'll throw it into like the fun only. I don't think this is ever gonna have an impact, but essentially, like, this is just a boost for psychic types. Psychic types are really bad right now, by the way. They are doing nothing. It's pretty crazy to see psychic types go from dominating to being basically unplayable. I don't know. Maybe someone can figure out Mewtwo and make that deck better. But unknown is basically like a buff for psychic types to Porygon, because now Porygon was always a cool idea in psychic decks because you could combo it with Mythical Slab, and then you would know if you're going to draw into a psychic type Pokemon. Now, but the problem with Porygon is that it wasn't a psychic type, so it just made your Mythical Slabs a little bit weaker. Now we essentially have Unknown, which is a Porygon, but psychic type, so you can combo it with Mythical Slab. And it also lets you look at your opponent's top deck. Could be somewhat impactful, maybe. Maybe if you know your opponent doesn't have a Cyrus, you can look at the top of the deck and see if a Cyrus is coming. But that would require a deck that's playing some sort of hand disruption to know what to play around, like know when to use a Mars or a red card. It would just take a couple things. And right now, with deck spaces being as limited as they are, I don't really see a reason to play the Unknown. Now we have Rotom. Rotom is essentially just a Zelf, but better for Arceus decks. But I don't know that we're ever going to really see it get played. I have much less confidence in the Rotom than I do like the Carnivine or the Abomasnow. So I'm going to put him in fun only as well. He has the Speed Link ability, just like Heatran. So if Arceus is in play, he has free retreat, but he only has 1 retreat anyway, so it's not like a big buff. It's probably the most wasted ability here, besides maybe on Raichu, the damage reduction, since he's already so tiny. And then his attack does 20 damage anywhere on your opponent's side, I believe. Is it not just benched? Nope, it is just bench Pokemon. Okay, so this card is even worse than I thought it was. It is just a Zelf that maybe gets free retreat sometimes, same HP stat, but can only hit the bench. Yeah, this card is actually not great. I'm putting him in the they tried. Real-time opinion change. Only to the benches, so I have to read this again. Is this right? This deck does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. That is bad. That is bad. That is just worse as Elf. You would never play that over as Elf, ever. That free retreat is not worth the potential to snipe the active Pokemon, I don't believe. Let's go into the fighting stuff. That's it for Psychic. Yeah, that's it. All right. First up, we got Sudowoodo. Where are you, Sudowoodo? All right, Sudowoodo, he gets to go into the Will Impact. Sudowoodo does 20 damage for 1 energy, and if your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX, it does 30 more. Has 80 HP, 2 retreat cost. We're already seeing this card do well in fighting type decks, which is just a given, right? There are so many decks that are playing like just EX Pokemon that having a 1 energy commitment card that can also be boosted, its damage can be boosted by Lucario, and you don't need any other effect. You just need your opponent's active to be an EX. It's crazy. Like, you could be hitting for 70 or 90 for 1 energy. It's just a great early attacker. You put the Pseudo in the active spot, and you just keep swinging while your opponent tries to set up their EXs. It's fantastic. Even against basic stuff. Again, once you get that Lucario set up, well, you're doing 40 damage with 1 Lucario, and that's pretty good against some of the 1 prize stuff, because most, let's be honest, at this point, most 1 prize things are not attackers or anything. They're usually just evolving into EX Pokemon. So you can get some just great early damage overall. And again, we're already seeing this in Rampardo's decks do very, very well. So the Sudowoodo is a great new option for fighting type decks. I like it a lot. Now we have Tyranitar. Tyranitar, we're going to put into the fun only. It's susceptible to a lot of things. It's a very, very fun card. It's a very, very fun card. Of all the fun only here, like, this is top of fun only. This card is great. I don't think we'll ever see it do anything because it is essentially Rhyperior, but does 10 more damage. But Rhyperior just has the problems of it's really slow to set up. It takes a lot of energy requirements. It loses very, very hard to any sort of bench sniping decks. Anything that can snipe the bench, this is going to lose to. So if there's ever Hitmonlees going around, if there's ever Garchomp EXs going around, whatever, this deck is going to take a terrible, terrible matchup to it. So the Tyranitar, while very cool, oh, I should also tell you what he does. He has the Power Link as well, so with an Arceus in play, he does 30 more damage. His main attack for 4 energy does 130. So you're doing 160 damage. You have 160 health. Yeah, there are some cool combos you can do. You can pair it with Regirock and use that to wall. You can pair it with Lucario, and then you're doing potentially 200 damage in 1 turn. Yeah, very, very cool card. But just sadly, not fantastic, which is quite sad. If we ever get Fighting Acceleration, we got to look at this guy again. But for now, yeah, taking 4 turns to set him up, if you find him on your first turn, can be a little bit tough. It does win pretty hard against some of the basic EX decks, but just not the entire meta as a whole. Also weak to grass. It has hard times against Celebi because by the time you get the Tyranitar set up, their Celebi has like 6 energy on it and it's just getting 1 shot. And if Tyranitar gets 1 shot, your game's over. This card, I guess we'll talk about for the fighting decks. We'll talk about the new Gabite. I'll put him in the Might Impact alongside the Garchomp EX. Both of these are pretty mid. Garchomp does not get the bonus damage from Cynthia. It does not. Garchomp EX and Garchomp are not the same thing, and the Cynthia card says Garchomp, so you do not get the damage buff, which means Garchomp is capped out at 100 energy or 100 damage for 3 energy. Its linear attack is very cool, but you would have to pair it with Lucario to get its damage number up, into any meaningful ranges, and even then, it's not one-shotting anything. So the better fighting type stuff we're seeing is like Rampardos. We're just seeing Rampardos get better because it now has Sudowoodo, because its damage output is higher and you can do it for just 1 energy. A lot of reasons. If you're going to play something fighting, Garchomp is not really the answer. I wish he was better. I honestly think that Dragon Claw should have done 100 for 2, or it should have done base 120 or base 130. Maybe even base 130 so it could one-shot some EXs with 1 Lucario in play. Something like that. I mean, this card is just not fantastic. You would ideally want to be using linear attack to help you set up knockouts, but Garchomp is just getting 2-shot anyways. So if you use 1 linear attack, you're not really free to go for a Dragon Claw again. Like, you're just trading 1 for 1 with even basic EXs on a stage 2 EX, which is never something you should do. They kind of fumbled with the Garchomp, but maybe some people play it. It's kind of like Machamp in that regard. Like, you'll see it around, but it's not the best way to play fighting by any means. Now, we have Dark types. Looking at the Dark types, I think that the Zubat and the Golbat, both of them, the other versions of them are just simply better. I would rather play the Genetic Apex Zubat and the Genetic Apex Golbat. But we have the Crobat. Crobat is proving to be pretty good too. The Crobat Arceus deck with Heatran seems to be pretty decent. I've seen, obviously, we've run into the Arceus Darkrai version of this instead of with Heatran. Not sure that that's better than this version. You know, you get to sit behind a 1-prizer instead of a 2-prizer. Like, you're either putting the Crobat or the Zubat in the active spot to get bullied while it's trying to evolve, or the Darkrai or the Arceus. I just think that the Heatran version is better. Heatran gets to sit in the active, and that's fantastic. You give up doing 50 poke every turn, but honestly, you'd just rather be attacking with Arceus because the damage ceiling on that is much higher than attacking with Darkrai. So Crobat should tell you what he does. He has a very, very cool ability, which says if you have an Arceus in play, you do 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Its attack is, relevant, I guess, if you're playing a Dark-type version of it, but if you're playing the Fire-type version we've seen, it's not. It does 50 damage for 1. So, you can boost your Arceus' damage to potential 160 in 1 turn. That's going to knock out, like, most basic EXs, as long as they don't have a Giant Cape. Well, it's going to one-shot every basic EX without a Giant Cape. It's going to fall a little bit short, but even then, the next turn, you can just use the ability again, finish off that knockout, and then swing for the full 130 into something else. So, it's a very, very cool card. It makes Arceus very, very scary against this deck because the Arceus' damage getting buffed is just ridiculous. So, yeah, Crobat, very, very cool. Also has free retreat. Don't know that he needed free retreat, but he does. So, yeah, fantastic card, fantastic card. Can't wait to see some more of it because it is a really cool effect. Now we'll go on to the Steel type, and we'll do Magnezone. Magnezone's going to be a fun only as well. This is just, it's nowhere near as good as the regular Magnezone we have. I don't ever see a reason to play it other than you're trying to play some sort of Arceus damage reduction troll list or something. Its ability, Resilience Link, it is just like the Raichu. If you have an Arceus in play, it takes 30 less damage from attacks, and then it does 80 damage for 2 metal, 1 colorless, 140 HP. Just not great stats all around. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about it other than it might make a fun deck in the future, or right now, but it's nothing special at the moment. Now we're going to go to the Steel-type EX. We're going to talk about Probopass. Probopass I'm going to put in Might Impact, and this is because it's a pretty strong card already. It's a stage 1. It does 90 damage for 2 metal and 1 colorless, and it says during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 20 damage less from attacks. It has 160 HP as well. So, there's a decent chance, depending on what's going on your opponent's side, that you can get 3 turns of attack out of the Probopass, which is always fantastic. I mean, 90 damage is a lot while you're also reducing your damage and having such high HP. That's going to make it so you can 2-shot any EX Pokemon that you run into. And again, so the reason I'm putting it in Might Impact is it is my understanding we have a 1 retreat Nose Pass coming out, which will just make this a little bit better, and maybe that little bit better is enough for the Probopass Dialga plus maybe an Arceus deck to be something. At the moment, it doesn't seem like it's too great, but maybe that Nose Pass makes the difference, and we see this card get played a little bit more. Cool card all around. You also have the Adamant supporter, so you can reduce your damage by 40 per turn, and we'll get to the supporters in a second here. Nothing else that's really cool for the Steel-type stuff. I don't even feel... I mean, I'll take the Bronzong. Bronzong has a Psychic attack. I'll put him in They Tried. You know what Psychic attack does. It does more damage based on how many energy are attached to your opponent's active. It does 20 more with a base 50, but it needs 3 energy to do this. It is colorless, so maybe at some point in the future, but I don't really think so. We'll do Origin Form Dialga. Can also probably go into They Tried. It's better than the Origin Form Palkia. It does 100 damage for 3 energy, has 120 HP, and it says flip a coin if tails during your next turn. This Pokemon can't attack. It's like okay, but it's really nothing. I don't think we'll ever consider putting this in a deck. And then for the Dragon types, we only got 1. I'm so sad we didn't get a Giratina EX. I don't know why they didn't give us one. It's actually like the most heartbreaking thing ever because I love Giratina so much. But we didn't, and we got this card instead, which is really bad. It does Crisis Dive, 120 for a Grass, a Psychic, and a Colorless. You discard 2 random energy from this Pokemon. 120 HP, 3 retreat cost. It's just not good. Now we get to move on to the colorless stuff. So we have Snorlax. Snorlax I'm going to put into the Might Impact, because I've seen some people start to lab these berry-style decks. Again, berry, it takes your Snorlaxes, your Staraptors, and your Heracross, and for the turn, they can attack for 2 colorless energy less. Snorlax has some pretty impressive stats. It's 140 HP basic. It does 100 damage for 4 colorless, so with berry, you could attack for 2, and it says this, this Pokemon is now asleep. So it could be like an okay attacker in some decks that have the space for berry and the Snorlax, but it's kind of up in the air right now. It's gonna go at the very bottom of my impact. Like, out of all the berry stuff, I think this is probably the best, and we'll just have to see in the future if it ever becomes like a 1-card inclusion in some deck. Now we have Staraptor. Staraptor's also just gonna go in the They Tried. It does 130 damage. So with berry, you could attack for 1 energy, and it does 100. I think I said it does 130. It does 20 damage to itself through their attack. Has 150 HP. Yeah, just it's a stage 2 that isn't one-shotting things, so it's really hard to consider playing it. Like, in this game, you're almost never getting 2 of the same stage 2 Pokemon set up. So you're really only going to have 1 Staraptor that can do this 130. And then it's probably just getting knocked out in return while not knocking out anything itself. It is some meaningful damage, but yeah, I just don't think it's that fantastic. Okay, now we have the Shaman. Shaman is like... I think Shaman can probably go into the Might Impact, but like the top of it. Because it is just a pretty good ability. It has the Sky Support ability, which says if this Pokemon is on the bench, your active basic Pokemon have 1 retreat cost less. Actually, I'm going to move it up to bottom of Will Impact, because we're already seeing this card get slotted into some decks. It's not like an overly powerful card, but it's going to be a tool that's around forever, and we could see it be doing very great things in some basic 1-prize attacker decks. Like, it would just be an infinite X speed for you, so you'd be able to bounce around cards. And it's also just doing good in some of these big EX decks, like these Arceus Dialga decks. They're doing fantastic, and they usually like to include 1 Shaman. Sometimes they won't, whatever. Either way, I think it will impact the meta a little bit. It's just a cool card to have around. I like seeing cards like this printed, because there's something we have to think about, and it's more options. I'm always down for more support Pokemon. Okay, now we have the basic Arceus. Basic Arceus, I also think can go, like, well, you know, I think he's probably just a for fun guy only, because the decks that you would pair the basic Arceus with over the big Arceus EX are usually just those fun ones, right? Like, I play the basic Arceus in my Tyranitar deck, which, again, is just a fun deck. I can't really say that we're going to move this Arceus any better, because in most cases, the Arceus EX is better to play than this one. You would only want to play it in some form of 1-prize Arceus combo deck, and there aren't that many of those that are good. So, yeah, we'll put that one in the fun only. Its effect, it really doesn't do that much. It does 100 damage for 4 colorless. You discard a random card, energy card from it, and it has 2 retreat cost, 120 HP. It's just kind of like whatever. Now we get to Arceus. This is the most... I don't even know where to begin. First of all, did you think Yanmega EX was good? Because here's Yanmega EX as a basic, and it does 10 more damage if you have a full bench. It is such a ridiculous card. It is a pretty big, you know, indicator of power creep a little bit, because it's just a basic version of Yanmega. There's very few reasons to run Yanmega over this. The only real way to do that is to play Leafeon with Yanmega, because Leafeon decks don't want a lot of basics. Other than that, anything you can think of that played Yanmega before probably just wants Arceus. Same with the Exeggutor, but I don't think that Exeggutor is really doing much at the moment. Leafeon just seems to be a better partner than Exeggutor. Yeah, this card is just disgusting. So, its ability doesn't really mean much at the moment. It says that it can't be affected by special conditions, which is cool, I guess. You can't put him to sleep. And then its attack, Ultimate Force, 3 colorless energy, 70 damage, and it does 20 more for each of your bench Pokemon. So with a full bench, you can hit for 130, and then, you know, you can also boost the damage with Crobat, whatever. It has all this synergy with all these other cards. Just overall, a very, very disgusting card. Just straight up power Creeption Mega. I can't believe that they printed this. There needed to be more drawback here for the Arceus, but it's broken, and now it's probably just the best card in the game. Debate if you want to, if Arceus should be, since he is the god Pokemon, but yeah. All right, let's move on to the trainers. We got a few of them here. We'll first talk about Irida. Irida, I'm going to put in the Will Impact. I don't think this card's quite broken. I think it's pretty balanced. You're seeing right now some water decks can put it in. Well, the decks that can put it in are really annoying. You know, you have the Palkia 18 trainers, the Articuno 18 trainers. Now they find room for the Irida, so it heals the damage. You see it sometimes in the Leafeon Celebi deck if they go for a just water energy build, so you can combo that with Irida and Erica and just heal turn after turn. It's a very strong card, but I don't think it's broken. I think it's pretty balanced. It's just a fair card. I mean, 40 damage from each Pokemon that has a water energy attached to it is pretty good. 40 damage is, you know, meaningful in some cases, but it's not anything too crazy. So I like the Irida card. I don't mind it in the format at all. And I think it's definitely going to impact the format as we go on. Now we have the, what is this? Celestic Town Elder. So this card, I feel like they fumbled a little bit with, and I'm trying hard to find a use case for it. The only thing I can think is that maybe their idea was like, this was a card to add to your Arceus decks. In case you can't find another benched Pokemon. It's like another out. It acts as another Pokeball after in the late game. But I'm trying hard to find a use case. Like, I don't want to say it's going to be totally useless, because I think for that, I have to put it in Might Impact. Maybe at some point, there's a deck that can get utility out of this. Right now, I do not see where it fits. The only thing I found to use this card with, and I started rambling. I don't even know if I said what it does. It puts a random basic from your discard pile to your hand, which is bad because it's random, so you don't get to pick which one you want. The only use case I found for this so far is in a little fun, like, updated Lake Trio deck I've been working on. And you can use that. You can use the Elder to get back one of your guys that got knocked out, or maybe both of your Uxie or both of your Zelf got knocked out, and now you can actually recover one. Or one of them can get knocked out, you can recover it, and then you can communicate that one away to go find the one that you need. Whatever. It seems to work in that deck, but that's about the only deck I can see that might want Care Town Elder or Celestic Town Elder. That's about it. So it's an okay card, but nothing really crazy. I guess a cool tool to have in the future, but I wish it wasn't random. Then we'll do Berry. Again, Might Impact. I think Berry is probably worse than Celestic Town Elder. Like, Berry is either it's going to work with this Snorlax card, or it's never going to work at all, and it's just going to be a useless supporter that we have in the card pool for no reason. I don't think it's that great. I've talked about it before in this video. It takes your Heracross, your Snorlax, and your Staraptor's attack cost, and it cuts it by 2 colorless energy. So it's just not that great because the cards around it are not that great. Maybe in the future, well, I guess in the future, every Snorlax we see, it's going to be something to look at. But again, it's not going to count a Snorlax EX if we ever get one, so don't get your hopes up. And then we have the Adaman supporter. Adaman, it says, I believe it's just metal Pokemon, not metal or Pokemon that have a metal. Yeah, it does, your metal Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent during that turn. I think this will just go right alongside Probopass, because I think that Adaman is really only ever going to be impactful in Probopass decks. I don't believe we're seeing Arceus Dialga decks even play Adaman, because there are just stronger support cards to play with it. But yeah, I mean, there are some circumstances that maybe we decide we want an Adaman in there. But I'm not really seeing it. I think it would only be good with a Probopass deck. And again, that's going to depend on, you know, what happens with Probopass. So that is going to be it for the video. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you're enjoying this set, because again, these are like the only cards I see that might do something. I feel like there's a lot of filler here. A little bit more than what we're used to potentially. So that's going to be it. If you guys enjoyed the content, please sub to the channel. I'll see you on the next one.